Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to make this video to give you some basic instruction on how to write a short literary analysis in any of my classes. It could be um, English 102, it could be world literature, whatever class that I might ask for such a paper. So, first things first, I want to show you exactly what I want you to do with your formatting. So, bear with me just a second. I will share my screen. So I will provide you formatting on your essays in the form of a template. So just make sure that you plug your paper into the template. So put your name here, whatever class it is you have, put the date here, up here at the top of the screen where it says last name, erase that, put your own name. And then there's a bunch of other stuff on this template that's good information. I would actually recommend that you make a copy of the template. That way you can go back and look at it anytime you want. And in general, you can just erase everything on there and start on the first line. And then your title is here as well. You use this template, all of your formatting and little things like that should be correct whenever you write a paper for me. All the font is always Times New Roman 12, and the margins on the template are already right. So use this whenever you write for me. I will always provide it with the first drop box. Now, with that said, now let's take a look at an example prompt for a short literary style paper. So the prompt. So in general, no matter what class it is, whether you take me for World Lit or 102, um, I usually give you a long list of questions to pick from. So this happens to be for my 102 class where we're reading a lot of Gothic fiction, and I I usually try to tailor the essay questions around major themes and ideas in the work. These are big picture things to talk about with regards to the work. These are the major ideas the work interrogates. Now, there's a likelihood that whatever I put on here um, might not be what you're interested in. If you're interested in writing about something else, just send me an email. I'll be happy to give you my blessing or not. But let's just take, for instance, this first question. Was Victor justified in not creating a female companion for the creature? Why or why not? Anchor your response in the text. So, whenever you're talking about planning an essay like this and organizing it, you want to be very careful with how you do it. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the advice to write the introduction last. If you've ever heard that advice, throw it out the window because it's completely terrible advice. You need to be able to plan an essay like this ahead of time. And so let's say that I pick that question. Um, should Victor Frankenstein have created the monster a female companion? Well, whenever you start a literary style paper, you want to grab the reader's attention first. So a good way to do that is often if you start with like an interesting fact, statistic, quote, etc. Then you kind of want to segue into introducing your topic. So that should be pretty easy because you know your topic from picking the prompt. Then your thesis. Now, thesis statements are where these types of papers are made or broken. You need to have a really good thesis statement up front showing me where you're going with your argument. You want to state what your argument is. You also want to state how you're going to arrive at that argument. So if you take a look, this is a basic model for writing a thesis statement. While some argue blank, I contend blank because premise one, premise two, premise three. So let's take, for example, if I was doing Frankenstein prompt. So the first two things that I have before the comma, while some would argue that Victor say owed the creature a companion. This is the opposite view. This is the view that you're not setting out to prove. This is the view that is opposite compared to yours. I like to call this the tension phrase because you're putting your belief in tension with the opposing belief. So my opposing belief here is yes, Victor should have created the monster companion. Then my this is the main part of my thesis, everything before the because. This is the claim. This is what I'm setting out to argue. So I believe that contend that doing so would have been a grave error because um, you need to come up with at least 3 or 4 reasons for your argument. So reason one could be the two could create a new race of monsters to plague humanity. So I have 3 things that I'm out to prove here. Um, that these two monsters could potentially create a new race of monsters. Um, the female monster might not love the male monster. The principle of double effect holds, and that one cannot do an evil to achieve a larger good. Not to go too deep into Frankenstein because you might be watching this video in another class. So here is how you organize now. So when you get to the body of your paper, you want to start, think about it like it's a hamburger. Um, the top bun, a hamburger at its basic roots is a piece of beef in between 2 pieces of bread. Maybe you got all the lettuce and tomato and condiments and all that on there, cheese. But at its heart, that's what a burger is. So a paragraph works the same way. The top bun of your burger is the topic sentence of the thesis. So my first reason in my thesis is they could create a new race of monsters. The second part is so you pretty much just restate what you said in your thesis. The second part is your evidence. Now, for literature style papers, it is very important that you bring in quotes from the novel or the short story to support your claims. So any literature style paper, if it's not grounded in the text, you're oftentimes you will lose sight on what you should be doing. So in any type of paper, you need to give evidence. If you're writing more of a political style paper, maybe you would need to give facts or data. But in a literature style paper, you want to give proof from the text. So my quote there might be something about where Victor is afraid that the two monsters could potentially breed a new race of monsters. The consequences for doing this action could be catastrophic. So I would want to give a quote there. And then the bottom bun of the burger, underneath the meat is the evidence. The bottom bun of the burger is driving home your point. So you don't want to just kind of end on a quote and leave the reader to draw an inference from your quote, like, okay, he means this. You want to treat your reader like they're dumb in a way. You want to kind of get the hammer, beat them home, beat the point home with the hammer, drive the nail in. This quote clearly shows that the consequences for creating a female monster could be awful. What would humanity? How could humanity deal with a race of superhuman um, entities like this? So there you go. Point in the first part of your point, topic sentence. The second part is your evidence. Your evidence comes in the form of quotes and specific examples. And the third point is you hammer home whatever it is you were trying to argue in the first place with your points. So you'll repeat this. My second point premise in my argument is the female monster might not love the male one. I would need to give evidence for that from the novel and then drive that point home. That's my argument. Section 3 is about the principle of double effect. Principle of double effect suggests that one cannot do an evil to achieve a larger good. So one cannot do an evil to achieve a larger good. So creating this, doing another act of evil and creating a second monster, even if it would result in a greater good, you're still doing an evil by creating the monster in the first place. So you could kind of go into that whole web of an argument. But that's how you organize. And don't think about this in terms of paragraphs. Think about it in terms of sections, because if you ever feel like a paragraph is going on too long, it probably is. I like to say the general rule for paragraphs is about half a page. Whenever you're given quotes in the text, you usually want to cap your quotes. You don't want your quote to take up the whole page, right? Usually, if you can kind of keep your quotes 3 lines or less, that's always a good thing. So the next part of your paper is the counter argument. So what's the counter argument here? Well, Victor owes the monster, he owes it to him as his creator to ensure his creation's happiness. Well, you would want to acknowledge that argument and then do something with it, do something to refute it. And then in your conclusion, you want to do two things. You want to sum up your argument again. That's one thing. But you also want to show why your argument matters to how we read and perceive the book. So think about it in terms of it's more than just an academic exercise. Why should your reader care? Why should the reader believe the same thing as you? So, in general, if you can organize the way that I'm teaching you, you'll be fine. Where these types of papers tend to go wrong is when you don't have a strong thesis. Usually, if you don't have a strong thesis, what students tend to do is they tend to um, want to explain the story. They want to explain the story in their own words, summarize the story. Don't do that. Assume that your audience knows the story already. I don't need the story explained to me. I want you to make an argument one way or the other. If you follow the advice I'm giving you, you'll do just fine. So please, if you are writing a paper for me, please do not hesitate to ask me questions if this video did not clarify it for you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.